Hey, what's up everybody and welcome back to News Dose, and a surprising Xbox Game Pass quote-unquote deal seemingly shadow dropped online, leaving some fans just a little bit confused. Now, this really made the rounds last night, and even big media outlets were reporting on this, which added to the overall confusion. But, and here's the thing, there's actually a little bit more to this story than what it originally appeared to be. Also, we did get some news for E3, and as sad as this may be, this might actually be our final official report on the beloved E3 that just so many of us grew up loving, myself included. As usual, though, we do have a lot to get into today. Do hit those buttons below for more content just like this. It helps the channel an absolute ton. Please go do that. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. But other than that, let's just go and jump right into the video, starting off with quietly one of the best games that's released in recent years, being none other than Vampire Survivors. Now, it's always so amusing telling somebody that, because a lot of people look at Vampire Survivors and just immediately think, yep, what's the big deal here? They think to themselves, oh, it doesn't look all that good. It's just some retro style of game that only uses one single button. And okay, I hear you and everything. I get you and all that, but Vampire Survivors is deceptively fun. One of the most addictive and just easy to jump into games out there. Just real quick, actually, this is a completely true story here. My wife, who is not a gamer, had those exact same thoughts, and she came down one day and she saw me playing this game, and she's like, why are you playing this? And I'm like, you know what? Come sit down and try it yourself. I think you'll actually like it. So, of course, she didn't believe me, but, you know, she was a good sport and everything. She tried it out for herself, and, well, long story short here, 6 hours goes by, and by this point, I'm ready to go to bed, and I tell her this and everything, and then she just kind of turns to me and she's like, just one more game. So, suffice to say, I went to bed by myself while she just kept playing. And that actually is a true story, and it didn't just happen that night. She continued to play that game for the next few weeks. She seemed to absolutely love that game. So, yeah, Vampire Survivors is a classic. Don't judge a book by its cover. It is absolutely a great game. So if you haven't already played it, definitely go do so. But the reason that we're actually talking about it today is because it's about ready to get even better. They just announced its second wave of DLC, which will release on April 13th for a grand total of $2. Yeah, it's also a very affordable game that will give you countless, and I mean countless, hours of fun. This DLC, though, will include 8 new characters, 13 new weapons, 1 stage, 7 music tracks, 20 new achievements to re-earn your 100% save, and of course, infinite amount of fun. So get to more slaying on April 13th. Now, we also got an update for Final Fantasy 16, as it looks like Square Enix has locked down its June 22nd release date. It has now officially gone gold, which is 2 months before its planned release. So, yeah, I'd say that's a very good sign. It's not going to be delayed. Very rarely does games get delayed when hitting mass production in the first place. But more than just that, even before today, they've often alluded to Final Fantasy 16 being mostly finished and that they're more or less focusing on polishing the final product. So, I'd say if anything, I kind of look at this news here, and with just how early it's gone gold, as a good indication that it will be a good overall launch rather than just some buggy, unpolished mess day one like we see with so many other games out there. I have to say this much, though, from everything that we've seen thus far, whether it be with it going gold early here or just all the early previews, Final Fantasy 16 really is just kind of shaping up to be possibly being one of the better modern Final Fantasy games to date. This one is looking really, really good, and it's easily one of my most anticipated games coming in 2023. Next up here, we got another update for the Microsoft Activision Blizzard acquisition, part thanks to Eidos, which continues to be such a boon throughout this entire buyout. Seriously, big shout out to Eidos, thank you very much. But he did post this up over on Resetera, which says, small update from MLEX. Microsoft remedies to address EU competition concerns have received broadly positive feedback from the association representing video game developers in Europe. The European Games Developer Federation was generally pleased with the remedy offer, but it has encouraged the Commission to further investigate how they would work in the future when the cross-platform distribution of games becomes more common. Sony and Google have criticized the remedies proposed by Microsoft. Yeah, big surprise there. We'll come back to that here in just a second. But mostly everything does seem to be going swimmingly for Microsoft. The EU is basically just doing their due diligence by this point, dotting all their I's, crossing all their T's. But all things considered, Microsoft they certainly had the prize within reach by this point. In fact, False Patents also posted a big article about this, which states, after major progress towards clearance over the course of the first quarter, Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard could consummate during the second quarter. I mean, yeah, I think that's kind of where we're going by this point. It does look like this deal will approve. Now, there could always be something that pops up, but it does look like it's more likely than not that this deal will end up being approved. I mean, really, the only big concern right now that some regulators have are about cloud gaming. And as we've already kind of seen, Microsoft has gone a long way in alleviating those concerns as well. They've already signed a contract with Nvidia, Boosteroid, and Ubisoft to bring their games over to their cloud-based platforms, and Microsoft has also suggested that more contracts are set to come. So I do think that they will hash out those problems relatively soon. It just seems like they're going to get this figured out one way or the other. Really, now that both the EU and the CMA, which was kind of that wild card for such a long time, now that both seemingly have thrown out Sony's complaints, there's not much friction for this acquisition to be declined. By all indications, it will be approved. Interestingly enough, though, I mean, about that, according to the MLEX report, that hasn't stopped Sony from complaining. They still are indeed, and apparently, well, Google is as well. Now we know why Sony is complaining, but why would Google be complaining here? Well, if you think about it, it's actually a very similar situation as to Sony's stance, which is more or less self-serving. In Sony's situation, they absolutely do not want Microsoft to acquire Activision Blizzard because it puts Microsoft in a better position to compete with the likes of Xbox and Xbox Game Pass. Both of those, especially Game Pass, will be in a stronger position, which threatens Sony's dominance. Well, in Google's situation, their stance is a little similar here as well because they don't want Microsoft to release their own mobile storefront, which could compete with them, considering Microsoft would have plenty of IP to attract consumers away from their store. Microsoft has already publicly talked about the desire to enter that mobile market. They have the money to compete. They have the IP to compete. They have cloud gaming. They have the Xbox brand. They have Bethesda and possibly Activision Blizzard. So this would be fairly good competition for Google if Microsoft can do this the right way. Either which way, though, I don't really think that these regulators are buying into either Google or Sony by this point. I don't foresee them just suddenly changing course because Google and Sony are complaining. I think we've kind of moved beyond that part of the investigation, and yeah, I think that we are heading to that eventual approval. Speaking of Xbox, though, a surprising leak seemingly made its way online. Now, this was really just kind of a whole weird situation, but basically what happened here is that an image surfaced online revealing the Xbox Game Pass family plan for $40 a month, or at least that's how it appeared. More on that in just a second, but as you might have guessed, that's a little bit higher than some fans were originally expecting. Other countries so far have been getting it for about $25. More on that here in just a second, but with this picture here showing $40, that would mean that if you share it with 5 different people, Game Pass would be about $8 per user, which, I mean, that's still a discount considering Game Pass Ultimate goes for $15 a month, but you would need all 5 users to pull together. You would need to trust everybody in that group, and maybe not everybody necessarily has 5 people to share with. Some people have a smaller family or they have a smaller group of friends, so it would make the family plan a tougher choice and would limit its reach quite a bit at that $40 price tag. Here's the thing, though. There is more to this story because this image was actually posted up by Jawmuncher on Twitter, not realizing his mistake. So what happened here is that he posted this image without realizing he was set to a different region. Now, he did later on come back to clarify that he did forget that his Xbox was set to the New Zealand region for Resident Evil 4. In other words, the family plan image that's being shared online is for New Zealand, and that actually does translate to about $25. So if you have seen that image somewhere, you can just kind of go ahead and discard it. It was just a simple mistake, though thankfully he did come back to correct himself, or else, I mean, who knows how much this would have been shared online. A little more info on this topic, though. Tom Warren from The Verge came out and posted this. You've seen the reports of Xbox Game Pass Friends and Family launching in the US at $40 a month. That is incorrect. The pricing is for New Zealand, and the service is not launching imminently in the United States. So, according to that post, it sounds like it might be a while before we get the family plan in the United States. Microsoft's definitely taking their sweet time here, and it will be interesting if they do match that $25 price. But I mean, if they do, that is an excellent deal, so long as you do have the people to share it with. That would basically bring Xbox Game Pass Ultimate down to $5 a month if you have all 5 people pulling together. And I mean, you all have heard me say this like 100 times, but Xbox Game Pass is already the best deal in gaming, and it might actually get even better here when it eventually comes to more regions. For that matter, with Microsoft recently killing off the $1 promotion for Xbox Game Pass, this would be a very nice replacement. So hopefully it will come sooner rather than later. Now, unfortunately, we do have some news for E3. It is official. E3 has been canceled for 2023. Now I can sit here and say the writing was kind of on the wall, and yeah, that very much is true. But at the same time, it is still saddening to hear this, because this might legitimately be E3's last big chance to do a showcase of this caliber. It's the end of an era, a very fun era at that. Of course, though, they did try. They tried to bring E3 back in 2023. They did bring in ReedPop to kind of organize E3 this year, which they typically handle PAX East. They do a very good job at what they do, and they were supposed to kind of come in here and save E3. To be fair, it sounds like they honestly did try, but I mean, it's just hard to do a showcase like this when you're missing the big 3. Xbox, Nintendo, and PlayStation, they did not sign up. Now, Sony, they haven't really done E3 in years, so that's not a big surprise. Nintendo, they had their own very successful directs, so, you know, them stepping away from a big showcase like this, I don't think that that's really all that surprising either. But Xbox, on the other hand, that was a little bit more surprising, as they've been more traditional and just a little bit more supportive of E3 here in recent years. So when Xbox announced that they were doing their own summer showcase instead, that was a big blow. So now ReedPop is just kind of depending on these third parties, but as we saw here recently, Ubisoft, they backed out just 1 month after announcing they were going to do E3. I imagine that they were supposed to be one of the bigger names to show up here, and once they backed out, it really just felt like that was kind of the end here. The writing truly was on the wall by this point, and yep, they went ahead and made that announcement today, which reads, "This was a difficult decision because of all the effort we and our partners put towards making this event happen, but we had to do what's right for the industry and what's right for E3. We appreciate and understand that interested companies wouldn't have playable demos ready, and that resourcing challenges made being at E3 this summer an obstacle they couldn't overcome. For those who did commit to E3 2023, we're sorry we can't put on the showcase you deserve and that you've come to expect from ReedPop's event experiences." So there it is. That's it for E3 in 2023, and maybe possibly just completely. Now, maybe they do come back next year. I mean, who knows? But you really have to kind of wonder by this point. As much as I love E3 myself, as many of you love E3, I think most of us kind of understands what's happening here. These different game publishers, they've kind of figured out they don't need E3. They can just kind of push a button and stream their own events instead, and still get a huge viewership without spending all the extra money that E3 requires. And that's the bottom line here. That's just what all this ultimately boils down to: money. Again, I think it's sad for gamers, especially for those that's watched E3 for a long time. I mean, my friends and I, we used to watch E3 every single year together, and it was just an absolute blast because you had all these different showcases, one after another, and they all tried to bring their very best. They wanted to try to top each other. I mean, sure, some showcases were kind of ridiculous. You did have Ubisoft come out there one year, kind of do a little bit of a laser tag battle on stage. The Peggle 2 reveal, that was a pretty legendary announcement. And you did have some awkward announcements like that every once in a while, but it was still a blast at the end of the day. The silver lining for fans of E3, though, is that as long as these companies do try to put together events in a close proximity from one another in June, as gamers, I still think that we have a lot to look forward to. No, it's not exactly the same as E3. It's not the same spectacle, but at the same time, it should still be a lot of fun, just a little bit more staggered going forward. Meanwhile, though, I do kind of wonder about Konami. Supposedly, they did have big E3 plans, but, I mean, I guess they'll just instead either do their own event or maybe partner up with Xbox or PlayStation to reveal their games as some of their showcases. Either way, though, I mean, this really might be it for E3. And if that is the case, I would like to hear from you all. Let me know your favorite E3 memory, if you have one. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day. They were asked you all, after a reportedly rough start, do you think Sony will get things turned around and have success with PlayStation VR 2? And as you can see here, unfortunately, most of you all don't appear to be too optimistic, with 75% of you all voting for no, while 16% of you all voted for yes. As we kind of talked about yesterday, there's really a number of different problems with the PlayStation VR 2 as it currently stands. Price is probably the big sticking point for a lot of people. I did see a lot of that in the comments. The fact that you have to spend $400 to $500 for a PlayStation 5 and then another $550 for the PlayStation VR 2, that's just too much for some people out there, especially now that we have multiple VR headsets on the market. I mean, if we have to buy a new VR headset every couple of years, that's going to be off-putting for some people out there. So that's kind of an issue on its own. But I also think one of the big issues that Sony's kind of having right now is they are running on this closed-off ecosystem. On one side, you see Sony kind of take their live service games. It sounds like they are going to start putting their live service games on PC and on console, which that's smart, and the reason for that is because it expands your reach. It gives these games a better chance in succeeding. But however, they didn't do that with PlayStation VR 2. What they probably should have done is give PlayStation VR 2 the capability of working on both the PlayStation 5 and on PC. And I feel like if they would have done that, then yes, it might have had a better opportunity of having success. But because it's in a closed-off ecosystem and it doesn't really offer much in the way of new experiences for the VR community, there's not really, or at least as of this moment, much of a reason to jump into PlayStation VR 2. Yes, they have Horizon Call of the Mountain, but that's really their lone true exclusive that just kind of differentiates itself from the competition. So right now, I just think it's kind of a hard sell for various different reasons, but at the same time, if they start to get more exclusive titles, if they lower that price a little bit, that could go a long way in helping it for the long term. Hopefully that will be the case, because it really is a good piece of technology. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode. But if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.